One important aspect of self-knowledge is to become aware of what you want and how you can get it. It is always possible to make some of the things you want happen if you prioritize them. That's why it seems like other people are doing well and that things like coaching can help you. If you want good grades, if you want your dream work, if you want a hot girl or a good husband, if you want fame, status and money, you can certainly get that, unless you're in a really bad situation. But usually, these things will not satisfy you like you thought they would. There is always something else you feel you need. And this is universal. Most people are unsatisfied, unless they discover and practice that which everyone needs. Yes, everyone is ultimately seeking the same thing, which we might call satisfaction or fulfillment. First, a question. Is there anything that can guarantee fulfillment or satisfaction? If we think about it, we must conclude that most things are fleeting, unstable and limited. And it is for that reason we actually should be glad that things like money, fame, sex and status does not leave us fulfilled. If those things were the key, then people would have to fight for fulfillment, which they do because they don't know any better. Sometimes these things are even called sins, not because these things are inherently wrong if they happen to you, but precisely because they miss the target when it comes to seeking fulfillment. Sex and money is not a sin or spiritual hindrance to someone who is impartial about them. It is only a sin and a spiritual hindrance to those who seek those things for the sake of fulfillment. But true fulfillment cannot depend on circumstances. It cannot depend on specific conditions. It may theoretically be possible for a few people to be blessed with such good fortune in life that the conditions themselves make these people fulfilled. But in reality, this doesn't really happen, and the very idea that specific conditions are a prerequisite for fulfillment is what creates conflict and frustration in the world. Even those people who have acquired a lot of the specific conditions they always dreamt of are constantly afraid of losing those conditions. It leads to more anxiety, frustration and suffering. The very fortune or conditions you have sought out or created will become a burden, a prison, more than freedom. No, for fulfillment to be true fulfillment, to be practical and universal fulfillment, it needs to be timeless. It cannot be dependent on a specific time period or the person's age in life. It cannot be dependent on a specific circumstance or condition, such as living in the right place or having the perfect partner. In other words, it cannot be dependent on anything. Otherwise, the fulfillment cannot be called spiritual or essential, and it cannot lead to societal sanity. Any type of condition you are dependent on is a form of partiality, a narrowing of consciousness, a blockage, and a reduction of life and reduction of experience. That's why I say that what we need is impartiality or non-attachment. But these words or concepts are easy to misunderstand and easy to twist into manipulation. The most common misunderstanding when it comes to impartiality is that it is the same as indifference, an attitude where you don't care. People often harden themselves or trivialize everything as a way of defending themselves against suffering. That's why I usually emphasize the term omni-interest or receptivity in combination with impartiality. A person who is partial is actually more indifferent because they only care about a few things, while everything else is rejected or ignored. The indifferent person is partial to their indifference, their carelessness. A real impartial person denies nothing. They experience everything that comes to them, whether it be good fortune or bad, and all of it has a nourishing effect on them. Everything is abundance to them. Nothing is better or worse than anything else. It is all experiences to them. And since experiences is the only thing real, they are filled with substance. Everything is real to them. Everything is riches. They are aware of all things, and so are filled with all things. The partial person is only aware of the particular condition they seek, and are avoiding everything else. They are poor, and this increases their hunger and makes them more extreme in their partiality. It's what we call selfishness and egoism. Non-attachment does not mean that you should sell all your things, reject money, and live a celibate life away from people. Non-attachment simply means that you can take it or leave it. It is an attitude free from fixations, free from requiring specific conditions in order to be happy. Non-attachment means that you can turn anything into riches. But this is where you have to be careful, so as not to be exploited by powerful people or elites, who often twist spiritual concepts to their own partial advantage. In order to control and manipulate the masses, impartiality and non-attachment are sometimes used to make people accept the cultural status quo. They say if you are stressed, try some yoga, practice mindfulness. Then you'll get back to work performance in no time. They want you to think you can be happy being a slave if you are impartial and non-attached. But true impartial or non-attached acceptance means accepting everything, also your feelings of stress and unhappiness with your lot in life. You do not make yourself indifferent to anything. If your body or your feelings tells you to scream, you scream. To practice mindfulness or stoic impartiality to optimize work performance or to adapt is not non-attachment. The point of impartiality or non-attachment is fulfillment and authenticity. It's not to become something you are not. It is not a means to an end. It is the actual end, the goal, the actual fulfillment. Because fulfillment is connected with experiences and, most importantly, awareness of experiences. Awareness of life, that you are alive right now, and that you don't avoid anything by getting lost in dreams, expectations and ideals. Non-avoidance, that's substance. And without substance, it is impossible to feel filled. And when we feel filled, when we experience ourselves as being more real, we also require less. We become happier and less selfish. We become less aggressive and less violent. We become less manipulative. We discover that we have already reached the goal, that we could have had it all along, and society becomes more sane as a result. Of course, in combination with this, in order to understand impartiality, receptivity and thus fulfillment, you also need the right knowledge. Thus, paradoxically, even this form of fulfillment is dependent on certain conditions. However, these particular conditions are closer to timeless conditions than other partial conditions. Insight about true fulfillment through non-attachment can be reached pretty easily with philosophy, unless the mind has been conditioned by the wrong ideas. It is mainly a matter of questioning everything that is not timeless. People can have this type of spiritual experience without a teacher, at any time and any place. People also need other people, connections, relationships, give and take. But as long as people exist, they exist in groups and communities. This is also timeless. Work with what you have and value the people around you, at least most of them. Even some jerk you don't like might be serving some important function in the community and allows you to have running water, electricity, or some other service that constantly needs maintenance. You also need to accept and love yourself in order to be natural and authentic, another aspect of fulfillment. But you always have your real nature and energies with you as long as you live. This is also a timeless resource that merely requires understanding and the right attitude. If your love of yourself is dependent on some form of acquisition or condition, then you still don't really love yourself. You only love the acquisition or condition. Nothing wrong with improving yourself a little, but it shouldn't be the basis of your self-love. Finally, since human beings have arisen in an environment they are suited to, things like food and shelter are usually available to them. At least in the past where such things weren't properties of the elite. Today, however, if you don't work for money, you have limited access to food and shelter, which are controlled and owned by businesses, corporations, states and the elite. This is the most destructive aspect of our civilization, because healthy food and shelter is a timeless need. And so of course, if someone wants to manipulate you, they will go after precisely these timeless needs to prevent you from feeling fulfilled. They will limit or frustrate your access to shelter and food unless you play along. They make sure that you don't love or accept yourself unless you change into what they want you to be. They ruin your reputation and social connection with other people unless you play along. They indoctrinate and distract you with false or limited knowledge so that you are less likely to question the system. They want you to live a hectic life so that you don't even have time to think. And they twist higher spiritual principles like love and non-attachment into moral obedience and passive acceptance. All this is life-denying, unlike non-attachment and open receptivity, which is life-affirming, because life is so much more than specific conditions or acquisitions. But what of those who die young? Is there any fulfillment for them? If you live life but a moment, yet with full receptivity, it might be more life than someone who lives a long life without ever being receptive. It's not about the length of life. It's about the quality of your attitude towards what you experience, each moment of it. If you lived a long life, yet paid little attention to it, avoiding it more than meeting it head on, it would almost be as if you didn't live at all. Physical death is not the only way you can lose your life.